Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Good evening, Fade to Black. How you doing? It is, what is today? Today's Monday, July 10th, 2023. I hope everybody had a great, safe, fun, and amazing weekend. Tonight's going to be a great show. It is Monday. I want you to help support the show, our news, and everything else that we do 4 days a week live by getting yourself a Fade to Black t-shirt. And you can get a Fade to Black t-shirt one of two ways. You can order one off the website. The link is below. And you can get a Game Changer membership. The link for that is below too as well. Everything is autographed, free shipping. You know what to do. The links are below. Tonight, our guest, Philip Kinsella, and we are going to be talking about, well, ET, contact, right? Maybe some specifics like Grays. But the Rendlesham Forest incident. That's right. We'll be talking about that and so much more tonight. He's the author of numerous books on UFOs and the afterlife. He won the British Mediumship Award in 2008 and went on to explore the fascinating subject of conscious survival beyond our material realm. He has appeared on national TV, all kinds of documentaries, including Discovery Plus, and those who created by Ian Productions, amongst many others. He also hosts a radio show with his identical twin brother, Ronald. The links for that are below over on our website and throughout social media. And I would like to welcome, and it's about time, for the first time, all the way from the UK, again, Philip Kinsella is live with us. Philip, good evening, young man. Good morning, I should say.
Good morning, Jimmy. And I have to say, it is an honor to be on your show. Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, no, the honor is all mine. But here's the deal. What is really cool is you get the first time guest disclaimer. And I had to go back and look. I've done so many shows. I thought we did a show before. And we haven't. And so now you get the first time guest disclaimer, which is it's Ronald. Philip. See, I don't know. I don't even know if I'm talking to Ronald or Philip. I don't know. You guys are too.
Well, I'll just try and find the seam and then take this off, and then we'll have a look, shall we?
Oh, man. The disclaimer is simple. It's just you and I, Philip, sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. And where that conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, but we will end as friends. There you go. All you got to do is accept.
Thank you.
Do you accept? You have to accept. You have to click. You have to. See, I love that part. I make everybody look. Welcome to the program, and so much to discuss tonight on this. But I do want to say this. I had a lot of shows from England in the past couple of months, by the way, and I'm very thankful and appreciative for everybody over on that side of the Atlantic to come in at the wee hours of the morning and do a 2-hour live broadcast. And it's really special. I'll be over in Manchester. Oh, man. I got to think about this in August. What month are we? July? I'm going to be in Manchester next month. Wow, that's crazy, isn't it? I'm going to be in London first, and then a little gig there with Billy Carson, and then we head up to Manchester for the Awakening conference. And
yes,
maybe I'll see you there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is an interesting place. I mean, we're very happy to be here. And someone asked what time it is in England. It is just gone past 3 in the morning. So but I mean, it's one of those things. We're here to talk and discuss about ufology, and a subject that's very close to my heart. I mean, we don't know what we're dealing with, but we can only deal with theoretical content, which is what I've been involved in, Jimmy, for many, many long years, to try and piece parts to this complex puzzle together. I think it's very interesting and fascinating. Especially when in terms of the new developments with regards to UAP phenomena, which is the same as UFO, because they've just changed the acronym into more scientific level. But hey, they've changed it, but it didn't exist, right? What's that all about? It's like, well, there we are.
Yeah, it's one of the more interesting developments, and I often wonder if the use of UAP, because UFO means one thing.
Yeah.
It's not unidentified aerial phenomena. It's not something. No, UFO means aliens. UFO means ET. You say UFO to anybody on this planet, and they know what you're talking about and referring to.
Yes.
Right? You throw UAP into the mix, and you go, huh? Right?
Yeah, but
Yeah, and I'm wondering if there's a reason behind that. If you really think about it,
yeah. I think it myself personally. I think it was very strange, Jimmy, just to interject here, that in the recent developments of these so-called balloons that hit your great country, and then of course they were shot down, and the news media for the very first time had actually reported on Lifetime media that UFOs had been shot down. And of course, that can open up a completely different area of investigations, and also theories with regards to that. But it was very strange. Even here in England, many ufologists were scratching their heads, thinking, "What are they doing? What are they saying UFOs?" Because you just said it right. UFO means alien aircraft, and they didn't use the word UAP because no one would understand what that is. They were going on about UFO, so that was very interesting. But the whole subject matter is something I think that is all very dear to our hearts, and I think we're moving through very interesting times with regards to certain developments. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you're right about that, though. You're right about that. If the headlines would have been Chinese UAP sighted over North America, right. But you throw in, you just throw in UFO, and you've got everybody's attention.
That's right.
So, in 10 years from now, it may be different. If the president, okay, let's look at it this way. President of the United States, right, breaks into our normally aired programming, right, breaks in, and I'm here to announce that UAPs are real. I don't, no. He breaks in, right, and says UFOs are real. We are being visited. That's got two different vibes going on.
Yeah, that's right. And I think one of the main areas that's very interesting is why it is that the system that we serve, and I call it the system, hasn't disclosed any of this information, because many years ago it was all taboo. And now all of a sudden we're seeing some very interesting developments with regards to whistleblowers coming forward. But you, me, and many other people around the world have always known that these things exist. I think that the system we serve will find it very difficult to explain to the public quite what's going on, or what was happening, with regards to that. So I have to say to you that with regards to the phenomena itself, and this is where I've been researching in terms of what it is, what it's about, where it's coming from on a theoretical level, because no one has the answers. But I think the system that we serve will have a real hard job in explaining to the public, oh yes, UFOs exist, UAPs exist, whichever way you want to take it. But we're going to have to now try and explain to you that these certain beings or entities, wherever they are and where they're coming from, are not quite how we expected them to be. And there are many patterns that we can look at with regards to that to suggest why that is. One of them is the abduction phenomena, with regards to how that is initiated. and the levels of high strangeness that come with that. That is an area that fascinates all of us. But my argument has always been, I mean, I don't have any answers. All I have is I have some ideas, and again, through theoretical content. But one of the main areas of my investigations was into the abduction phenomena. You know, what is this? What's behind it? Why is it being initiated? And so what we had to do was we had to look at certain patterns within the research to find out, you know, quite possibly, are we dealing with aliens or are we dealing with something else? And I always joke, Jimmy, I say, you know, if there's a bar where all of these beings are hanging out, let me know where they are, because I'll be down there. Because, you know, you've got the you've got the greys, you've got the, in terms of like cryptozoology, the dogman, you've got the Sasquatch. I mean, all these beings are real. They come into our reality, but then of course they fade out. And of course, we have no real substance or proof that we have in terms of their, you know, their existence, but we know they're real. So this is why I think that the system that we serve will have a problem in actually saying to the public, well, you know, we could be dealing with some kind of interdimensional connection link here. And I think most people will, you know, they think interdimensional is some kind of ethereal existence, but we have to understand that one side of that is real and our side is real, you know, and there's a connection between the two. So it is really very interesting, very fascinating indeed about, you know, how we all view this subject. And, you know, we've got to get past those areas where, you know, certain people claim all these things that's going on with them every day of the week. But, you know, that's why people like all of us here are very serious with regards to our investigations in terms of the phenomena. But, you know, it's not just in America, because that's interesting, because in your country, you have more sightings than anyone else in the world. Statistically, you do. And then, of course, England comes a little bit way behind that. But it's interesting, isn't it, why it is that this phenomena seems to be drawn to certain geographical locations as well. So, you know.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. It is, but it's also kind of wrong. Let me explain. Okay, so we've got Roswell. All right, so the United States has got that going for us, right? You've got Rendlesham.
Ah, yes.
Australia's got Westall. Canada's got Shag Harbor. You've got the Ariel incident in Africa.
Oh,
right?
Yes.
And that's just the start of the list. So it's not like Americans are too jaded. I get the point that you want to make that you didn't actually say is that over here we're self-centered, and that perception of us not giving a crap about anything outside of our borders is kind of true. We think that, you know, everything revolves around us, and we don't involve ourselves enough internationally. And you know what? That's true. And I get that. And I think that more Americans need to go out and see the world. Just go out and see the world and experience what's going on. The UFO phenomena is not an American thing. It's an Earth thing, right? And it's really that simple. And so when I say, Philip, I'm not kidding about this. I get this question every day. So, man, what are your favorites? Well, give me your top five. Give me your top five. You know what's always right there? Rendlesham.
Yes.
I mean, for me, and for a lot of different reasons, we're going to get to your reasons in a second. I think I've talked to just about everybody involved with the case. I've had most on this show. I've talked to them privately. I've talked to them publicly. I've done both, and I've become friends with them. We don't have that with a lot of other cases. Certainly that's gone with Roswell, right?
Yes.
And Betty and Barney Hill, and there's but Rendlesham is a modern case that involves the United States Air Force on British soil. That right there makes this case at the tippy top for me.
Yeah, and I will say to you, Jimmy, that it was and is one of the most complex cases, I think, within ufology because of the uh, mass contradictions that the media have tried to ascertain in making out that nothing really happened. I will tell you that when you get involved with ufology, and I didn't intend to go out there and be a researcher or someone that knows what they're talking about. But when I was a kid, I remembered reading about this case in one of our national newspapers when the story had blown, and not realizing that many long years later that I myself, just little me, would be out there investigating this place under the recommendation of another ufologist that came over to England, promoting a book at that time. And of course, that's how I started to get involved with looking around the area. And I will tell you, you have to be there to understand the full importance of what it feels like. It's a really weird place, and I think, in terms of areas of high strangeness. In terms of like Skinwalker Ranch, and we have another area here in England called Bempton that Paul Sinclair, an author, investigator, is investigating here. That we were looking at the geographical location, and let me tell you, that place is weird. And this is how I and my twin brother Ronald and a good friend Susan started our investigations in the mid 90s to see if there was any truth to these claims of these levels of high strangeness, and there definitely are. So whether or not the UFO that appeared to the US military back in 1980, the winter of 1980, over the Christmas period, has anything to do or linked with these areas of high strangeness, we don't know. But it always appears that when there is UFO activity, normally it comes with a plethora of other levels of poltergeist activity, of light phenomena, the appearance of strange beings, creatures, this type of thing. So yes, it is still active, or it was at least when we had done our investigations. And of all the people that I met while I was in that forest, because I didn't know anything really about Brenda Butler, Dot Street, and Jenny Randalls. And Jenny Randalls was obviously one of our top British UFO authors of the time in ufology. And they had subsequently joined together to write a book that was published back in 1984 by Neville Spearman Limited, called Sky Crasher Cosmic Conspiracy, which was trying to uncover the reality of the Rendlesham case. And of course, during that period, during that time, it was very much in its early stages of development. No one was really talking, and the three women had to go in there and find out as much as they could. And then, of course, subsequent to that, when I went in to do my investigations, I actually met Brenda Butler. And this is where it's really strange, where these areas or levels of high strangeness coming, synchronicity. I met her in the forest because I remembered going there and thinking to myself, and saying out loud, I really would like to meet Brenda Butler. And of course, on that particular night, that's who I met in the forest.
No,
and she was,
now you're making stuff up.
No, it is true. That is the truth of God.
It did really go down like that.
Yeah,
Wow.
and this then led into our association with one another, where Brenda Butler, who has to be commended for all her research, because we call her the guardian of the forest. She was there at the very beginning when all of these things started to take place about the military troops coming forward. Colonel Charles Halt she was involved with. And by the way, I've met the great man himself. He's absolutely on par with everything that he says. So I teamed up with her, and I didn't realize that she had a wealth of other really good information, some of it would sound outlandish to many of you out there. But let me tell you, when I started researching it, it seems to be true. It's like
no doubt. Yeah, can I just? I want to make just an offhanded comment, and I'm not being at all cavalier, but Jenny Randalls, one of the. I would not want her picking up my scent or getting on my trail.
No, and the feeling is mutual as well with many other people. Yeah,
she is going to figure it out.
Yeah,
that's the truth. Love Jenny. Okay, so let's back up for a second.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get to specifics, but there was one strange common denominator with all of the witnesses from Rendlesham. I think that all of them, most, and I think there's one exception, but that doesn't matter. I'm not here for controversy. But all of them are nice. All of them are cool. I think all of them have been truthful. I think all of them went through an experience. And all of them, on the other side, can be very pissed off.
Absolutely.
Because, there's a certain amount of anger that goes with this. And the frustration of the experience itself and having to go public.
Yeah. And I'll tell you why. Because one of the main areas with regards to that event back in 1980, one of the major events within England, as it were, that was tried to be covered up by the Ministry of Defence, is that I think that the men involved, and the women, there were women on the bases as well too, but mostly the men, the guys. They're angry because they're not getting any answers to what happened. Now, one of the really strange things about this is that what we've discovered, as we all kind of know, is that when the phenomena seems to integrate itself on a personal level with the individual, i.e. a UFO comes into close range, what happens is that my understanding is that the phenomena or the energy or the intelligence behind it seems to integrate within the human psyche of the individual on a very personal level of integration. So that, say, for instance, there could be 5 people, 6 people, and they will report different things.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very interesting, I think, because most of the guys out there had actually reported different experiences. Now, I will say to all your good viewers here, Jimmy, that you can forget the Orfordness Lighthouse as being, or had been responsible, because it's no longer around, as being the UFOs. And God help your good American military for chasing lights from a lighthouse. I have to say, it's like, really, you are talking about trained military guys. They're hard men. So we saw that ourselves when we were out there doing our research. But I think that the most of the disruption and the difficulty is because no one has any clear answers. Everyone that was involved with that incident has come away changed. And also, which it normally does, the phenomena does to anyone that has an experience or UFO encounter. And I think, in Phil, because of the mass contradictions with one another, one is saying that this is what happened to them, and then someone else, this is what's created the divide. And not just that, but also the silence from the authorities. But Brenda Butler was one of the key witnesses who was very to the events as they unfolded, not actually to the UFOs, because she's seen UFOs at Rendlesham before and afterwards. This isn't by any means an isolated case. This is the thing.
Okay.
It's like, people talk about certain UFO encounters or areas, but certainly this was nothing new in terms of UFOs being seen and witnessed along with strange activity within the surrounding area, before and seemingly still well after the main event of 1980. So I think I understand exactly why there is a lot of contradiction in terms of the case that we're dealing with in terms of Rendlesham itself. And whatever celebrated UFO case you get involved in, you have to be very wary. And I found that myself. It was like walking on eggshells. It's like, what you've got, I had no right to walk in there and start, who am I to make my own assumptions, or, working on a book with Brenda as well too, because I thought that would in some way disrupt what other people believed as occurring there. So it's kind of like with any UFO case, if someone else comes in, other people don't like it. It's like they try and push you out or away from it. It's very strange, but it has been a very interesting journey of all the research and developments. Rendlesham, I was going to say Sky Crash then, but
Right.
Rendlesham is one of, like Roswell and many other cases, the most controversial here in England, and one of, I think they call it England's Roswell. That's what it's known as here.
For sure they do, and rightly so. Shag Harbor is Canada's Roswell. Let me ask you this, just a personal question. Where were you living at the time in relation to Woodbridge and Rendlesham and Bentwaters? How far away did you live?
We were roughly around. Well, we lived at that time. Cool. I was a young lad then. I mean, we lived in Luton, an old big old Victorian house. We were in Luton, and we come back from South Africa because we lived out there for a while, and then came back to a place, some part of Luton, before we actually then moved to Bedfordshire. So we were some miles away. It is a 2-hour journey from where we are here now, because this is where we were before we did all the research. So it's like 2 hours. It's nothing to you. To you Americans, we moan about 2 hours. It's like 2. It's like a walk in the park.
Right. Okay. So, but did you have any idea of the layout of the southeastern part of the UK where all of this was located? Were you familiar with the area?
Well, back then, Jimmy, no, not really. I mean, when I read about the case in the national newspapers, I remembered being astounded and very shocked that there was claims of aliens. Of course, as we understand through a lot of the, the testimony from those involved, we're not so sure about that. But we can't dismiss it. Nothing must be dismissed. But certainly, I remembered being absolutely amazed. And then, of course, finding myself in there with Brenda Butler. And then we did a lot of experimentation, right? Because we actually also summoned on the 8th of June, 1998, at precisely 10:15 p.m. at night, we actually summoned a UFO, and that was done through a CE5 initiative. I had no idea even then that such a thing existed. We did it as an experiment, and people say to you, "Oh, did you film it? Have you got proof?" Well, heck, it doesn't matter what you have, what you bring forward, whatever you present. Not that we did have anything, because that was part of the process involved with the experiment. No one's going to believe you. They're going to think, we want more. And even if you give them more, it's just not. They're not going to. It's not going to happen.
Oh yeah, it's no.
I think it's a very personal thing as well. I think that, but certainly with regards to Rendlesham, the area again has these levels of high strangeness.
Can I ask you another question? And then we'll move on. So your first time there, tell me, did you go left at Eastgate and then right into the forest?
Yes, we did. We did indeed. Because
what did that feel like?
Well, I will tell you that that it's very strange. It's not because we're going into an apparent disused military base now. It is very spooky. I mean, there's no question about that. It's not just the military installation units themselves. It is that area that leads all the way up to left at Eastgate, which is a really long way. And when you go into the forest, I don't know. I mean, we all get the heebie-jeebies sometimes when we go into areas when it's dark, and we all get that. We all feel that. But there is something very wrong about this place. The only way I can explain it is there is a feeling. I can't find the words to describe it. I will say to you that when we went there for the first time, when we went to the actual gates themselves, where Eastgate, there is this pervading smell. It's almost like a medical smell. It feels like it was really off-putting, and people have reported this smell. And I know there's been rumors of are there underground installations there? Well, we don't know. We can't prove any of that. But it certainly it is spooky. There is something not right about it. I mean, you get that feeling as soon as you come into the area. I think we all have that radar within our biological systems where you think, yeah, we're going to go for a walk, or we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and then all of a sudden things seem to change. And that's what I felt. It's like there's something not right. It always feels like you're being watched. It just felt really odd. I can't, and when you try and fathom what that is, I've been in woods before, I've been in forests before, didn't get that feeling with them. And it's not because this is famous, it's because it's true. And as I said to you, you have to be there, personally there, to understand what that feeling's like. It's bizarre.
It's you probably get that when you land at Heathrow.
Yes. No, well,
You got
definitely.
you got
Definitely.
marlin, you got fairies, but the strange part that I've always found with this and interviewing everybody. I mean, it's sometimes, and I'm not kidding about this, Philip. I've spent hours and hours and hours on the phone with Peniston and
Oh,
Burroughs
yes.
and
Yeah.
Halt and just going over details and getting every side of the story.
Yeah.
And I always and I say this every single time when they're on the show, that we need to really focus on what they are saying. We need to focus because none of us have that experience. We are talking about when Burroughs says, I'll just pull something out of the air. I'm going to paraphrase, right? But when he says, I fell down on the hill and I looked up over the top and there's this thing, Bustenda's behind me and Peniston is over, at that moment, what is going through his head?
No, God only knows. Yeah.
God only knows. Listen to every word, and we should be so thankful that everybody is still with us, and we can talk about that experience in the forest over
Yes.
3 nights. It wasn't one night. It wasn't two. It was
That's
3,
right.
possibly even 4.
Yes, that's right. And people, when the information did come out in Sky Crash: A Cosmic Conspiracy, the first book that was published, and of course the 3 ladies had difficulties even then trying to get the book out there because they felt that someone somewhere was trying to suppress the information, with regards to getting the story out there. But I think now that time has passed, that when you are involved in a UFO incident, I mean, I myself have been there a few times, let me tell you, and at very close range. It takes a long time for you to process that information, to deal with it on an emotional and mental level. And it's not, people think, and we're talking about good, honest folk here. I mean, we've dealt with people who are less than truthful, and I think they're easy to discover after a short period of time. But what happens is, even for those men that were involved in that, Peniston, Burroughs, Halt, and all his men as well too, it's taken a long time for them to deal with that and to process it because it's so far removed from our sense of reality that there's no way of translating that information. I think after all these years, yes, the men are still very angry and confused, understandably so. I mean, if I may just say here very quickly, what had occurred to us on the 8th of June 1998 was something that cannot be explained, in terms of what it was. To me, and to Ronnie and Susan, it looked, to all intents and purposes, like a pyramidical device with a gap and a circular appendage underneath it, floating above the trees. And someone even said to me, "Oh, it's because the military were using, holographic technology." And my argument was, hang on just a minute. Why would the military be interested in 3 relatively unimportant individuals and projecting an image of an apparent strange craft in front of us to make us do what? I mean, to believe that they're real and then go and run and tell everyone? Who's going to listen to us? That was a conscious experiment. And that proves something to me in terms of maybe how this phenomena is able to interact with us on a mental level. Whether or not it's aware of us, we're aware of it. It's like this process that we get. So going back to your point, I agree with you, because everyone is trying to put it all in different boxes. It's the same with the phenomena itself. Cryptozoology in one box, UFOs in another, aliens in another, paranormal in another. It's like there are connections to some degree, like all of us. So I think and feel on that level, I agree with you. I think and feel that people are attacking this person and that person and saying they're not telling the truth and this person's lying. But actually, what we've discovered is that the phenomena integrates on a very personal level of the psyche, and what the individual that's caught in that magician's spell, as it were, as it comes in, they're going to see what that energy, what that intelligence is projecting through to their consciousness.
I have. All right, I'm just going to put it just straight. Too many times where you have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 witnesses to a car accident, you're going to have 10 different stories.
Absolutely.
10 different colors of the car, 10 different directions they were driving in. One, it was seen turning left. It was turning right. No, it was going straight. Well, which one was it? It's the same thing with UFOs or anything. It's your perception of that. And there was, I'm just going to tell this story as quickly as possible. 15 seconds. Driving down a mountain road out here in Los Angeles, coming into the valley. I've got a few million people in front of me. It's the valley, right? It's 10 o'clock at night. It's 10:24. And this light comes down. It's at night. Goes right down the center of my windshield. I'm driving on a windy mountain road, but I see the lights of the valley in front of me. And it lasted for about a second. 1 second, just straight down. And I thought I was going to see downtown Van Nuys blow up. Right? That's what I thought. I thought it was going to be a crash, right? Nothing happened. I called MUFON, right? I drive straight home. I mean, I called MUFON. Dude, 10:24. I'm looking at my clock. I'm driving my car. This is what happened. I go home, turn on the news. Nothing.
Normally the way. And of course, when you look at these social media sites, this is the other thing that really gets me. It's like they've got it all worked out. They're going to tell you exactly what it is that you saw and what happened. They will never take that stance. But my argument is what's going to happen when more of this revelation of the reality of the phenomenon comes forward, and how you'll notice then at that point how quickly the narrative changes and all of that disappears.
It's going to change. Listen. When the flying saucer lands at Buckingham Palace, right, and ET comes off and goes, okay, so check this out. We're here. Bring us Mick West, right? That's what they're going to do. Bring us Mick West. We got to have a conversation with Mick. But you're right about that, though. And when we think about, we want everybody at Rendlesham to have the exact same story and the exact same experience. And we don't get that from anything. Watch a sporting play. If something goes down at Wimbledon or at Yankee Stadium and you've got 30, 40, 50,000 people there, right? And they see it. And they all see it differently. They hear it.
I'll say to you, Jimmy, sorry to interrupt you. Was that what's interesting is that in terms of the physical evidence, when I had teamed up with Brenda within the forest during the mid part of 1990s, she showed us some interesting things, one of which was she was with Pete Parrish, a friend of hers, and they used to go out. I mean, she's in the forest every single night of the week. I mean, not so much now because, bless her, she's not so good now at the moment. But I remembered her showing us a video of this grey that they'd taken on one of these very old, camcorder things back then in the day, and it was quite interesting. And I thought to myself, they kept rewinding it and showing us when we had met them, and they were very open with their research and what they discovered. And I remember thinking to myself, well, why isn't that on mainstream media? And that was very interesting. But also, when we did get involved with a lot of the information that Brenda had that she hadn't released, and subsequent to that, Brenda had only co-authored Sky Crash, A Cosmic Conspiracy. That was it. She hadn't done anything else. And I thought, well, why haven't you written another book? Why haven't you brought any more of this information out? Well, she did. She had a huge manuscript that I was very honored to have had a look at. And she also had some material that was like these honeycombs with lots of hundreds of, well, maybe thousands of little pits of things in them. They were very light. They were multicolored, and apparently this was the residue from the actual craft that Halt had seen when it started to drip its molten material onto the ground, because Dot Street and Brenda Butler used to, break into the base a lot of the times. They were arrested sometimes by Halt's security. But I actually held this material, and it has been analysed. But you have to understand with Brenda, like with anyone that you meet within a celebrated UFO event, is that they also then carry these levels of high strangeness. You get from one mystery to another. So I said to Brenda, well, why haven't you done anything with this? And of course, with that material, she has had it analyzed, but she's very wary of people. She doesn't like people going in. She's very suspicious of people.
Wait. Stop. What do you mean a gray in the woods on video? What did you see?
Yeah, so when we'd met them, I will tell you, I'll just go over briefly, you'll laugh at this, because on the night in question that I got out of the car and I said, I'd really love to meet Brenda Butler. And of course, going into the forest that night, me, Ronnie and Susan, we saw these flashes, Jimmy, in part of the forest. We thought, my God, that must be a UFO. There were these flashes of lights. And as we got nearer, we heard this sound, this music. It was like a woo, 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 woo music. And I thought, what is that? Well, anyway, I could see this lady and this man and this white German shepherd. And as we passed them, they seemed to be trying to photograph something within the foliage. And of course, when we walked past, it was getting quite dark. She was guarded, and we walked past. She said, good evening. I know it's good night, but good evening, as you would. And I had this sudden compulsion to go back. I don't know why, just this feeling. And I went back to the lady with her partner, Pete Parrish, her friend, and the dog. And I said, "Are you looking for the orbs?" And she got up and she said, "Yes, why?" And I said, "Well, I'm rather hoping to meet Brenda Butler." And she said, "My dear, I am Brenda Butler." So that's how we met. And then they showed us this. They had this camcorder with the recordings on it. And they were very open about what they've been capturing in the forest itself. And one of them was of this being that the only way I can describe it to you, it looked like a grey, but it was floating above the ground. So imagine just seeing an outline of a grey, and it seems to be a little bit in darkness, but you can see it. It's there. It's you can see it, but it's moving forward away from them as it was being recorded through the forest, like gliding forward. And I said to them, "What is that?" And they said, "Well, this is a grey." And I said, "Well, it certainly looks like it, but it reminded me a little bit of the Predator when it goes into its when it cloaks itself, so you can only see the
the shimmer, the glimmer.
That's what it was like, and no word of a lie. I mean, I don't. I'm telling you as I see it, black and white, straight as a lace. That's the way I am. But that is what I saw, and they kept rewinding it because I kept saying, "Can I see that again? Can I see that again?" So they have to keep rewinding it for me to see it because I wanted to get it in here. And at that point, I thought, why isn't this out there? Why has no one discussed this or spoken about this? This is something that you don't see on national media. And I think that this is going back to your point, Jimmy, which is really amazing when you said that all these people, the experiences that they've gone through, the amazing experiences they've gone through, and what they must know, and yet what the public don't know and what they don't want to speak about. That is very interesting because that was just one small part of a lot of other information that Brenda had in terms of what was going on within the surrounding area of Rendlesham. And I think the authorities didn't want anything to do with Brenda because she's very open, she's very aware, she's also very psychic. As soon as you mention the word psychic, people are like, "No, we're leaving, thank you very much. We don't want to." Yep. It's like, they don't understand about the individual and what they've gone through and what they know as well. And of course, as we well know, those areas of high strangeness with regards to Rendlesham just got off the Richter scale with regards to Brenda when I started going through that manuscript with regards to another strange character that presented apparently himself, call it, reptilian, alien man, whatever you want to call it. And I thought, no way, no, as you would say in America, no way, man. But when I started looking into this, oh my God, it apparently was true because, although this strange man called David Daniels had nothing to do with the major events of the 1980 UFO sighting, he rocked up in Brenda's life shortly after Sky Crash: A Cosmic Conspiracy had been published. Now, people say, well, how does he figure within all of this? This elusive David Daniels, where does he stick with? We don't know. But what we do know is that he infiltrated a number of key ufologists during that period of time, even a lord here in England, and also Ralph Noyes, who was linked with the Ministry of Defense during that period of time. Now, just backtracking slightly here, with regards to this David Daniels as well, too, when we were doing our research, we feel that we had also met this strange, elusive figure years after the events happened with Brenda. So again, I think with all of us, when you start to look into areas of the phenomena, it's not just about UFOs, it's not just about aliens. And that is interesting, especially with the Greys. They fascinate me in many ways with regards to what they may represent, what they're after, what they're doing. But this leads us into the whole spectrum of, like, my goodness me, things get weird. So it is like going down that rabbit hole. So you have to hold on to your sense of reality as you're starting to investigate or getting involved in it, because you're just like, you've got to have a strong mind with this because it's going to blow.
Well, and then I'll tell you what's nuts. And I need to go back to your point, which is today you can talk about psychics, you can talk about mediums, you can talk about ghosts, you can talk about UFOs, you can talk about extra dimensions and parallel realities, you can talk about time. People listen. Okay, I get it though. 20, 30 years ago, it just wasn't that kind of party.
That's right.
And when I was hosting, I hosted Coast to Coast for almost 7 years, man, 7 years. And I had this crazy sighting. So I decide, and it was a Friday night, I've got open lines on Coast, right? I don't know how many people are listening on a Friday night, but it's in the millions, okay? And I tell the story. What happened, what we saw, and everything. Do you know how many people reached out from the media? 0. Right. And I really thought, Philip, that somebody like me in my position, yeah. Right? It's like, and I'm not elevating myself, but it's the biggest overnight radio show in the world.
That's right.
And with a lot of listeners, and I am who I am. And so it's like as if, you had Tucker Carlson or Anderson Cooper or whoever, Ryan Seacrest, pick somebody, go out and say, I saw this UFO with some people and this is what happened. And you'd think somebody would have paid attention. Now, if I would have done the same thing today, yeah, it would get noticed. But back then, nobody wanted to touch it.
Yeah, and that was the difficult part. I mean, when we had, me and Brenda had kind of like found a publisher, and of course, Sky Crash, throughout time, the book that we had co-authored, when it first came out, Jimmy, from Keppelband Publishing Limited here in England, it was they did a lot of mind, body, and spirit books and that type of thing. It's like the production of many other books. It didn't seem to catch on. I just had the feeling that people thought that the book itself would be talking only about the 1980 event and that only, but it fell on deaf ears, and people attacked the book, which they would anyway. They have every right to if they don't like it, because it had other areas that people could not understand. And now what's really strange, you're absolutely right, we have changed, attitudes have changed now, and that's why Philip Mantle, a British ufologist here in England, decided to published the book through his Flying Disc Press, and it
Mhm.
seems to have gained a little bit more attention than what it had. But it's just very strange that, it's like if I decided that, oh, I'm going to write a book on Roswell, again, you'd find that very difficult because Roswell has been done to death. It's like many other areas. I think when a UFO event occurs within its primary stages, I think there's a lot of interest then from those trying to get to the truth with it, even though in those days you couldn't get the information out there. There's a flurry of information which was really exciting. So for me, being linked with Rendlesham in a very small way, it was really amazing, I think incredible. And then discovering that, these areas of high strangeness really do exist. And trying to work that one out. But I think that in terms of human consciousness, awareness, again, putting those subject matters into separate categories. Just very briefly here, if we look at another area which is fascinating, the NDE, near-death experience. And what I did many years ago, back in 1996, what makes parallels between that and the abduction phenomena, where a person going through an NDE would temporarily be removed from this reality. They could go through walls and doors. The same with with an abduction. In an NDE, there is no time. The same with an abduction. The NDE, again, going into that, communication is received on a mental or telepathic exchange, the same with an abduction. So I realized we were dealing within that department of two separate categories, but may remind us that we're dealing with something in terms of the abduction phenomena that is so far removed by our sense of reality, rather like the NDE, i.e. operating on a higher frequency of awareness that matches itself into ours, temporarily connects through on that level. So, talking about, dealing with psychic phenomena, or understanding at least the translation of information from what we call mediums or translators, I prefer the word. I think there are connections to be made here. I think, people tend to put you in a box. They say, oh, look, UFOs back in the day, in the 90s. Oh, look, this person's weird. They expect you to be a blank canvas. Oh, this guy, oh, he likes science fiction. Oh, he's imaginative. I mean, what do they expect us to be? But now I think a lot of people and attitudes have changed, Jimmy, in terms of how we are now beginning to view, and only because a lot of senior people have started to step forward to say, hang on a minute, we want to say our piece as well too. And thank God for that. Even if we don't have that proof that we're looking for, things have started to change, I think, on a monumental level, and with regards to disclosure. Will we get it fully? I don't know. I'm not so sure about that.
What do you make of when we come back after the break, we can go deeper into this, but Ross Coulthart, who I rather enjoy. He's been on the show many times, and I like him. He's kind of like he's the Australian version of Jenny Randles. You don't want him on your scent. you're gonna lose.
No.
But he said this week, he said that they found an alien craft that was so big they couldn't move it. So they built a building around it, and it wasn't in the United States. After what Grush said last month, right? We've got flying saucers, we've got alien bodies on ice, we got, all of these revelations that are just happening on a daily basis. And then Ross drops this bomb. And it sounds like, and we got the Canadians MP letter that was made public a couple of weeks ago. But what do you think Ross should do? Should Ross just hang it all out there and say where it is, what the country is, and where he got the information? As a journalist, or do you do it? Do you not do it because you're a journalist and you don't want to burn your sources, or do you do this for the interest of humanity and just put the stuff out there and
do it for humanity? Do it for humanity, because at the end of the day, we're not going to lose anything. At the end of the day, we've been lied to for so many years. And and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, attitudes have changed. And that's really the annoying part, I think, with regards to this. I think that, the way that we see it, we feel like we've been cheated and robbed, especially when you go on programs and you're ridiculed, right? Like they'll take the mickey out of you, and it's like, oh, hang on just a minute. Things have changed now, haven't they? And then, of course, these people disappear. So I think that for doing it for humanity, because we are, after all, wanting the truth. That's all we're after. And this gives us hope as well, too, Jimmy. It gives us hope in the sense that we're not just mere biological automatons with a sell-by date. There is a lot more involved with this, which tells us categorically not just about the human species, our genus, but also about out there that we call space. That we've just had a black and white version given to us, a basic version, a Sunday school version. It doesn't stick. I'm sorry. There is a lot more involved with not just the UFO phenomena, and this is why I say it gives us hope, because it's like, yeah, you now tell us where they come from, where they're coming from, why they're here, what they're doing, and that's a very interesting part. I think that really incredible.
Somebody, I have to pop this up. One of the people that works for us, Dennis. Dennis says, Ross Coulthart, still have to listen to the audio book I bought last month, and his audio book, Hidden in Plain Sight, which I have. I've listened to it probably 10 times.
Yeah, I have it.
It's Ross reading his own book, so you got that going for you, right? That's really cool. But that's not the best part of the book. The best part of the book, and you can quote me here, everybody, make your memes. That's it. Make your memes. Here's the best, is when Ross is reading a quote in somebody else's voice. Right? It is the best part of the audiobook to hear how Ross goes into character. It's man, I just I love it. Yeah. Go ahead.
I have the paperback. I don't have the audio with that, I'm afraid.
Get the audiobook. I have the paperback too, but the audiobook is, I'm telling you, when he goes, you know what, I'm not going to imitate Ross, but he knows exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, we at some point, even with David Grush and others, where I think most, if not all of us, are tired of somebody said. That's it's a corporation. Enough of that. All right. Now we just start naming names. Is it Lockheed Skunk Works? Is it out here in the Mojave Desert? Do they have bodies buried in the desert? Are they backwards engineering craft? Who is it? Who did it? Who authorized the program? Who's paying them? Right. And let's go.
Big question also is, where are they coming from? Now that is essentially the part that we also need to know, because
do you think Lockheed knows that? Do you think the CIA knows that? Do you think MI5 or MI6 knows that?
It's possible. Whoever has these objects, wherever they are, because people can tell you anything, oh, they're here, they're there. Whoever has them, wherever they are, obviously they're a puzzle. They can't seem to work out what they are or how they operate, apparently, so allegedly we're told. And this, of course, brings into question a lot of the questions of back-engineered technology, alien technology, reverse engineering of certain crafts. Now, I've always assumed that it's possible that we have somehow reverse some crafts, but now I'm not so sure. And I wasn't one of those big, out there saying, oh, that's one of ours up there, the triangular crafts, TR13, whatever, TR3B, that's one of ours. I've never subscribed to that, but it's interesting. But I think that if, that we're not told where they're coming from, because we've told, well, there's space out there. So space is, a platform where objects are seen and recorded. So if they're coming from space, that also means that these space agencies have lied to us, or that they haven't been upfront, unless, of course, the objects coming through, some of them are interdimensional. That is the fascinating part. I'm just like a kid in a toy shop. It's like, I want to know, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's like, I want to know where they're coming from, right? And the fascinating aspects of that, to take that into account, interdimensional, how are they doing it? And interesting how Grush said that, allegedly that they would have had scientists looking at them. That is a cert. They would have had that they don't know how they work. They don't know how they operate. And that is interesting, I think, because, it reminds me of one of the series here, Steven Spielberg's Taken, when they, of course, they had two twin psychic women trying to operate the craft, and by mental means they were killed. It's like, so how are these things working? What's happening? But I think it's really incredible. Yeah, absolutely. Tell us where they are. We want to see them, right?
Best TV series ever.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. So, and you know what's weird about Taken? First off, you can't see it, right? You really have to. If you want to see Taken, you can. I have. Took a lot of work. But an absolute, it's not what I expected, Taken. Because it spans time.
Yes.
And you're right about that. I mean, it spans, it's generational. It's a generational.
That's right. Yeah.
Story that is behind it. And I didn't expect that. I thought it was, going to be more sci-fi. I think it was. Steven Spielberg knows something. You watch Taken, and you're thinking to yourself, this feels kind of true, right? This feels.
I think that with the intergenerational part, that is another aspect to the phenomena that the system will find very difficult to address, because if they are in possession of certain species of extraterrestrials, then it's not just, oh yes, here they are, this is what they are. The main emphasis is, well, they're here, they've been doing stuff. We want to know what they're doing and why they're doing it, why it's all secreted, right? It's like, that's an area there that's quite uncomfortable to address, I think, in terms of understanding of the phenomena. So I think it's fascinating, it's interesting. Once we have the confirmation, the validation that they are real, God knows how they're going to do that, then there are other areas that we need to contemplate as well too, which is really interesting in terms of research and theoretical application. Because I don't think that our system that we serve can control them. I don't think they have any means of controlling when they come in, who they take, who they appear to, that kind of thing. I think this is something that they're worried about. So is this a good thing or a bad thing? We don't know. And this is the other area that we have to be very careful about, the love and light part, where, it's like people are like, they're fixated on that part. And then we've got another part that's like, well, no, we need to look at this in a more realistic fashion. I'm not saying there aren't good ETs out there. I'm sure there are. But my main area of investigations has been into the abduction phenomena, such as it is, and trying to work out just what the hell's going on with regards to that. Do I know, Jimmy? No, I'm black and white. There'll be people out there who will tell you how it is and what it is on a theoretical level, but I don't do that. I'm very open to certain aspects of the research involved with that. It doesn't make me clever. It doesn't make me special. We're all that. But it's fascinating, I think, especially when you yourself have been in their presence at close range. That changes everything. The system telling you it doesn't exist. You're like, hang on just a minute. And of course, just very quickly here, the last sighting that we had, my brother, was on the 9th of April 2016 at precisely 11:15 p.m. at night. That was incredible. And that was an event that had been documented and tracked by other sources all the way. These objects had come all the way from the Isles of Scilly. So, that was fascinating. But every time it, on the few occasions it's happened, you're like, why are you doing this to me? Why is this happening? They don't seem to give anything or any clues like, yeah, take me up if you could and show me. But nothing's ever prevalent. Nothing is ever given. It's always like, it's like, here we are. Now you got to work it out. It's like, what is that about? I have no idea. Are you
suggesting, though, that those were silly objects? Okay, so let me back. We've got to take a break here, but
yeah, sure.
Let me ask you this: if you knew that you were going to be abducted and you could prevent it, do you do it, or do you go through with the abduction? Do you allow the abduction to happen with what you know?
I would myself personally prevent it.
No, you would not. Now you're making stuff up again.
Okay, I'm making up. Listen. Okay, so because
wouldn't I'm not so sure which version is going to happen. Right? Are we going to sit down and have pizza and a candlelight dinner together, or is this going to be something really invasive?
Well, let me
don't
tell
know,
you, I
but
think the invasive part is something. Yeah, so but unless you have the experience, you're not going to know that it's real, right? So you need to have the
right. So
experience.
you got to do it. You got to do it. Philip, you would do it. You would do it. You would do it. And
Okay,
then you
okay.
come on, then you would come on this show.
You're not going to set something up now. If there's a beam of
No,
light that comes forward
I
and I'm
know.
gone, I'm gonna kill you.
Let's take our break right here. Philip Kinsella is with us, not his twin brother. Tonight we're talking about Rendlesham, ET contact, disclosure, all of the above, live from the UK. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with us. We'll be right back. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. We'll be right back. Join us November 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2023 as Disclosure Fest Foundation and Fade to Black Radio presents Stairway to the Stars, a Human Origins Science and Technology Expo, live at the Luxor Hotel and Casino on the Las Vegas Strip. With live talks, lectures, and workshops by world-acclaimed researchers and authors. This is Jimmy Church, by the way, and I'll be your host all weekend long, featuring topics like human origins, ancient technologies, indigenous teachings, workshops, a mass meditation, yoga and sound healing, music, and so much more. Don't miss our intimate sky watch and meteor shower over the infamous Area 51 airspace in Rachel, Nevada, with special surprise celebrity hosts guiding us through the night. Also introducing our Disclosure Fest VR Starship area with dozens of rides. You've got to check it out. This event will sell out. For more information and tickets, please visit disclosurefest.org. Hi, everybody. Jimmy Church here. Very special announcement, and that is we are shipping Fade to Black t-shirts again. It's been almost 2 years. We did a full upgrade to the website, so you can head over to jimmychurchradio.com. It's all simple to do, and it's right there. Remember, we broadcast 4 nights a week, Monday through Thursday. We bring you the best, the brightest, the most knowledgeable and amazing guests, the best conversations. We do that 4 nights a week. We also do 4 days a week. We broadcast the news, and we do that live too as well. It's not a one-man show. I do it with website support. I do it with producers. I do it with writers and artists. All contribute to the show. The best way to help support what we do here is with the Fade to Black t-shirt. And you can get your Fade to Black t-shirt one of 2 ways. First, go to jimmychurchradio.com, order a shirt. It's really that simple. You're going to get a tracking number, it's going to get shipped, and it's going to get autographed. The second way to get a shirt is with a Game Changer membership. Now, the Game Changer membership not only includes a free t-shirt, but you get a private email to me. You get unlimited commercial-free downloads. You have full access to the website, and everything includes free shipping, and everything is autographed. So help support the show. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. The links are below. You can just go to jimmychurchradio.com, and it's right on the website. So there you go. I'm Jimmy Church, Fade to Black. I'm so excited that I just have one thing to say. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hey everybody, it's Billy Carson, also known as Forbidden Knowledge. I want to talk to you about a very special event coming up July 30th, 2023, the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We're going to honor people who have been contributing to the conscious community for decades. People that you know and love that have helped you get to higher levels of thought and consciousness and awareness. It's going to be a live in-person event, but seats are going to sell out very fast. You want to make sure you're there in person, and guess what? You can help vote for the winners. Voting is available on forbiddenknowledge.com. And the categories are going to be social media influencer, podcast/radio host, TV host, actor, director, producer, entrepreneurs, health and wellness, philanthropists, authors, field researchers, archaeologists, space anomaly hunters, and of course, a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'll be your keynote speaker that night at the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We have celebrity guests performing. We'll have a halftime show where we're actually going to perform music for you. And don't forget about the pre-event mixer, where if you buy a box seat, you'll be in the VIP section, and you also have private access to a VIP mixer with celebrity guests. Shake hands, break bread, network, and then walk the red carpet with us and take amazing photos. It's going to be a night to remember. You don't want to forget this. Make sure you hurry up and get your tickets because they're selling out very fast. I want to see you there. Forbidden Conscious Awards 2023.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Philip Kinsella is with us, and Philip, I want to go back to the TR3B incident that you had with Brenda in the woods. The most would describe the TR3B as being our technology, right? Built here on Earth, reverse engineered, yes. Alien technology, yes, but this is secret U.S. Air Force stuff. But you called it in with the CE5, and that indicates something else altogether, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the experiment was performed with me, my brother, and Susan. Brenda at that point had no part to play with regards to the.
I said Brenda, Susan.
Yeah.
I
No,
apologize
okay.
for that.
No worry, Jimmy. But it was incredible. No, the way that the craft appeared was through a flash of light that appeared above these trees. It was intense, and then there was the only way I can describe it was the construction of this pyramid type craft, and it was literally like a pyramid with a gap and a circular undercarriage. Now the top half of the object, it was silent, was glowing from within. And this light was seemed to be emanating from inside the source of the triangle. Underneath it, the circular undercarriage had a bank of blue lights around it, and one part was moving one way and the other moving the other. And immediately when I clocked it, I couldn't believe it. And of course, I started to run. This had happened in the area of Capel Green, which is a part of a farmer's field, literally. And at that point, half of the field was dirt and half was crop. And there was a little bit more that built up to this contact before it actually initiated. But it was very interesting because I started to run towards it. And I was shouting back to the others, confirming to them to say, tell me that it's a pyramid, tell me that it has a circular undercarriage, because I wanted them to confirm that what I was seeing was what they were seeing, that it wasn't something different. And when I started to run towards it, I was running through the wet crop. My jeans were becoming soaked at that point, but I didn't care. I was like a half crazed hominid. And I didn't even, think about anything happening to me. I just wanted to get to it. And as I got nearer and nearer to it, it was huge. And then I slipped and I fell as I come under it. And then it just went out like that. It just literally like someone turning a switch. The lights gone off, it went. The very next day, I then made a full report and contacted a well-known UFO magazine here in England. And I spoke to an editor that asked me to send all of the information, separately. I mean, for all he knew, could all gang together and do the same thing. But we're honest, right? We did all the drawings and all the information. We were asked to send it to the editor. I couldn't quite work out his name. His name, he said, was something Forbes. Anyway, so we sent it and we didn't hear anything and nothing came forward. So I contacted the magazine afterwards and I said, did you receive the information? Because they said that the person at the end of the line, when I first spoke to them, said that they would send it to Peter Robbins. And I thought, well, why would they send it to Peter Robbins? I know Peter Robbins very well. He's a dear friend. So it's like, why would it, back then, I didn't really know much about him. Why would they send it to him there? So they didn't have anyone by the name of the editor. It's not a conspiracy, but I just thought to myself, if someone's got information somewhere, if they have that still after all these years, I'd like it back, please. But the object itself was composed of light. It appeared solid. It was solid because that's the construction it appeared as. But it came. Does that make sense, Jimmy? It came in like light and then went out very quickly like that. So I think
that happens all the time. I think that's a very typical experience. What about Susan and your brother? Did they see the same shape?
Oh yes, absolutely. Oh, completely and utterly. I mean, that this is, and people said, we agreed before we did this contact, a week before we went to the forest. This is a week before the 8th of June 1998, and that night was absolutely beautiful at the forest. Clear skies, stars. There was a full moon. It was beautiful. A week before, we had done an experiment, a psychic experiment, and this all came under the recommendation of a song I heard from Karen Carpenter, Calling Occupants. I thought, is that possible? Can we do that? And I thought, crazy as it seemed, let's give it a go. Let's try it. And what better place to try it than in the heart of England's Roswell? We'll give it a go. So we kind of before the experiment initiated within the forest as well too, because we sat in the field meditating before the events happened. And that was exactly at 10:15 p.m. at night when that object appeared. And it's funny how many years later, the last sighting of the three objects at very close low range was at 11:15 p.m. at night. It's an hour forward. But I used some dowsing rods to try and find the area of where the original craft had apparently landed within the field or the area where the craft came down, because within the original testimony of the men, the military at Rendlesham in 1980, the UFOs had been seen in certain locations around areas. So we were trying to find out where this was. So I used some dowsing rods, and I thought this was the area. It was just like oh, blasé, but it was incredible, but certainly not what I would call man-made, no, and certainly not a projection of holographic imagery from the military, no way. But some other disturbing events occurred there, Jimmy, as well, throughout our many years of investigation. Not everything happened or anything happened during our exploits there. Sometimes we had nothing. But on one occasion that we had gone there, we put a blanket down that we would set just before Capel Green, the field, because that was our viewing place where we could see, kind of like Skywatch within the forest. And we had decided to go off for a few minutes. I wanted to smoke. I mean, I don't smoke anymore, but I wanted to go for a fag. So we'd all left the blanket and walked around for about 10, 15 minutes. When we came back, someone had left a dead rat and a dead rabbit on the blanket in a circle, in a complete circle, so that the rat's nose was touching the other creatures behind. So it was in a circle, the rat and the rabbit. It was like a circle. It was very disturbing. And I remembered Susan, myself, and Ronnie thinking, someone's been here, because they were fresh. We didn't want to touch them. And of course, we got out of the forest pretty fast. We had also had experiences where huge black helicopters at night had been trying to get us out of the perimeter. God knows what for, because they were coming at treetop level and they were hovering there, like following us. And I'm like, well, this is public land. Okay, so with the military bases, you can't go on there, right? But this is public land. We can do what we want here. But these helicopters were hovering and almost like hassling. And on one occasion that this had occurred, when it was just me and Susan, we got to her car. We drove from Eastgate all the way down when the helicopter then went off, and we parked the car further down the base and we walked up. And then we realized that there was a convoy of vehicles, military vehicles, coming up to the base. So I was wearing a cream jumper, Jimmy, a cream jumper, right? It stood out like a sore thumb. And we hid behind this tree, this bark of this huge tree. And these vehicles came up with blacked out windows. No conspiracy, but they were going into the base. And I kept thinking, why would they be going into a disused base? I had no idea why, and why the helicopter was intent in clearing the area or wanting the area cleared. And there was another very interesting part to this, I will say, before I forget, on another event. This is in the book, Sky Crash. Susan and I had gone into the forest, and again, there was a military helicopter. There was a certain area where there was a clearing. The helicopter was coming down. We thought it was going to land. It was hovering so low we could see the pilots. The pilots could see us. But there was some strange light phenomena coming directly to our left. And we were trying to direct the pilots to show them like this. You don't need to be looking at us. You need to be looking at what's going on over there. It was like all this strange light stuff that was occurring in the sky, and not far from where the helicopter was, but the helicopter was not interested in them. And we thought the damn thing, the helicopter, was going to land and then going to come out and arrest us or something. It's like, that was really freaky. And of course, you come away from these situations thinking that actually happened. But how the hell am I going to explain this to people? Because they're going to say no. And you're like, yes, that actually happened. So there was, for an event that occurred in 1980, for an area of high strangeness, with a lot of historical significance with regards to UFO sightings before and afterwards, I think it tells us that, these certain areas seem to be a magnet drawn for this phenomena, but not just that, but also a lot of paranormal activity as well. We did see light phenomena like orbs, the famous orbs that are seen. It's not a trick of the lights or whatever. You see like red orbs, sometimes blue orbs in there. And on another occasion that was really quite interesting, Brenda had told me, she said to me in her country voice, she said, "My dear, have you heard about the stones that come from the sky?" I said, "No, I haven't." So on this particular day, it was broad daylight. We were walking through the forest, and I have to add here, not where there were hanging trees, but it was just like a clearing. And all of a sudden I heard these sounds, and it was like something was falling on the floor. And Jimmy, no word of a lie, stones were falling from the sky, and one appeared in front of us. And Brenda said to me, "Go and pick that up." She said, "Go and pick that up. And if you do, you'll find it's hot." So I thought, well, I'll go and do it. I picked it up. It was hot. It's weird.
I don't know. I don't know what to do with that one.
No.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one.
I think, to be honest with you, it's possible, theoretically speaking, that when this phenomena, i.e. UFOs, come in, or there's an area where there's a lot of UFO activity, it could be possible that there are a number of reasons, theories that we can take here, that the opening or the area of space that the object has opened has distorted time and space and made some kind of, strange fluctuation of other energies coming in, maybe a multitude of other dimensions interlocking with one another. That seems to have an area or portal, a temporary portal, because you'll find that when UFOs have been seen, that paranormal occurrences happen, and only for a brief period of time, normally before and after the events have happened. So I don't know, but I mean, it's an idea that we can play, that it's some kind of area has been ripped open and left open temporarily for these other forces to come through. Because how can you equate falling stones with a UFO or orbs with UFOs? That doesn't seem to make any sense to me.
I'm going to go back to the lighthouse for a second.
Oh, the Orphanus Lighthouse, yeah.
Yes. So when you were first there, you made the left at East Gate, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and you entered. I have seen the lighthouse is not exactly close by.
No, it's not.
It's not, and it would be different if it was closer, one. And two, I've always felt that everybody at Bentwaters and Woodbridge knew of that lighthouse. We're talking about these are airfields, right? And they know that lighthouse is out there doing its job.
Oh, yes.
When you went into the forest, did you see the light? Was there any way to confuse the lighthouse with something in the middle of the forest?
No, you could see how can I explain this? Let me try and explain this in the right words. There was a very dim light source that would sweep across, not powerful at all. It was very weak, but it was noticeable. And that we clocked that straight away. And it wasn't something that's like a big torchlight coming around in circles. It was very, very vague, very, very faint, but you could see it. And you could tell straight away that, oh, that's the Orfordness Lighthouse. The lighthouse is now being decommissioned. There is no lighthouse there anymore. But that is something that we clocked straight away. And I'm standing there thinking, hang on just a minute. How on earth can this be attributed to the UFO activity that occurred at close range with those military guys? This is just not possible. And again, the question, the human question of like, you're dealing with trained men. These guys are not just like run of the mill. These men are trained. They know what they're looking at. They know what aircrafts are. They know what helicopters are. They can tell you exactly what they're looking at. So this phenomena, and it's really very sad, Jimmy, in many ways, it really pours my heart for them, because what happened to those guys, even for Colonel Charles Halt, this is one of the supreme commanders, you understand, in terms of the military faction. He is standing there telling you he doesn't even know what the hell that was. He stated it is not. He doesn't feel that it was from here. And of course, you know, the investigations that occurred afterwards with regards to the events unfolding with a lot of the witnesses to that event are truly disturbing. Office of Special Investigations, and, you know, the minds of those men being screwed up. Peniston, God love him, a good man, a good, solid man. You know, you can see straight away on his face that those events that happened to him have haunted him, completely haunted him. And you know, and with all of them, I think and feel, and they're left with the emotional scars, with the issues as well too, which will occur, and it does happen sometimes, on how they deal with this. So no one has any answers, but it seems to me that going back to a lot of the information that's being presented now, there are certain organizations that know of this reality, that are aware of it. Quite what they know, obviously a little bit more than what we know, we're not sure, but it does appear to me that they and their main interest has been in infiltrating a lot of UFO groups, a lot of, you know, like yourself, talk show hosts, you know, famous talk show hosts, radio stations, TV. They've probably amassed so much information that they can get from people, but still deny the phenomena exists. So that lighthouse theory is defunct. You can forget the lighthouse.
Yeah, and here's for me, the crazy part when it comes to the lighthouse. It's the actual audio tapes from Halt himself.
Yes.
Because what he says in the tape in real time,
yes,
it's like an eye blinking.
That's right.
Those are the words from the deputy base commander himself.
That's right.
That is not a lighthouse beacon. that is something doing this in the middle of, and he describes the metal dripping off of it. You're not going to get that, and just go to the original source.
That's right.
He's describing it right then on the audio tape. That and the lighthouse don't have anything to do with each other.
No, and of course there was a particular researcher I won't mention that actually had a lot of publicity in terms of the scientific applications of what they believe was occurring. But, you know, it just didn't make any sense whatsoever. And you'll find also that a lot of the information that was coming forward, and those that witnessed the events as they unfolded, you know, were silenced. So they were left to deal with it in their own way. But I think and feel, certainly, as I said, I was very privileged and honored to have gone in there to see myself at even the lighthouse theory. So I am one person out of probably many here in England that's been there that can attest to the fact that, no, it's not the lighthouse. Yeah, I understand what people are saying, but it's not happening. And there was a lot of other stuff as well, too, a lot of crazy stuff that was occurring. There was people stating that it was the breakup of a satellite coming to the Earth's orbit. And of course, once again, you know, you're talking about an object that is way, way off. What those men saw was at close range, complete close range. And, you know, and I really feel for those guys, I really do. But at the same token, very honored to have found myself kind of like stepping lightly into the area and then having a look and then kind of like researching myself to see what was going on. I mean, everyone has a story, everyone has an experience, but it's good, I think, for us all to bring these stories and experiences together, for us to share in that, to understand that. And one of the things, Jimmy, I will tell you is that I have been dead. Sometimes it can be a very hard head and very black and white, but I am no nonsense with this. But certainly I can tell you that the events that unfolded were very disturbing. And again, going back to the experiment that we had performed on the 8th of June 1998, that occurred at 10:15 p.m. at night, there was whether or not this force, this intelligence, was aware that we were aware a week prior. So somehow it seemed to integrate with us or connect with us on that level. And it's any wonder, I think, the same thing occurred to those men. Not that they, deliberately summoned them. I'm not saying that, but how the integration of that intelligence seemed to change the way that they viewed reality as we see it. And I think that's incredible, really quite amazing.
I know that I was cracked a couple of little things about abductions earlier,
Yes.
but you had in 1989 you had a contact experience. Take us through that and what happened.
Well, I won't go into too much detail because it is quite long-winded and a little bit embarrassing as well too, because of an investigation, and that's something unfortunately which I suffered through, being a fool that I was in believing that the media would be open and understanding. I wasn't very much aware of much of that back then in the day. But the experience changed my concept of reality. Part of that experience was physical, part happened on a non-physical level of reality that left me with marks, scars. There were greys involved. And there were some other entities as well too, which I was embarrassed to report during the time, and even to the point when I did write about this in a book called "Believe: Bridging the Gap Between the Psychic and UFO Phenomena." The publisher wanted to retract the part of the abduction itself because he felt that most people wouldn't believe or understand anything to do with that. Now, luckily, I had the account published in another magazine many years before that book appeared, because people say, well, hang on a minute, he's talked about this experience, but there's a part missing. So that is what happened there. But the experience itself kind of like opened up another area within my mind of how contact could be initiated, and certainly with regards to the greys themselves, because I always wondered how it was that people were telling you they're AI technology, they're this, they're that. But my interest was, why would a species that cannot replicate be interested in the process of replication in terms of, people call hybridization? I didn't see any hybridization when the abduction occurred, I can tell you that now. But this then led me into other areas about what the greys are interested in terms of our physiology, in terms of our processing, in terms of our creation, as it were. So, what was interesting was that when I had the experience, the abduction back in 1989, and there may have been another few, but I will only report what I recall. I'm not going to add anything. Strangely enough, I could recall the experience as it occurred. And there is another researcher that has, I think, done about a 90 or 100-page report on that, because I haven't let it go. When this happens to you, I was determined to find out what this was and why it happened. After the major events that occurred that did involve my brother and my sister through the first part of that, my brother did something very strange before the activity started to occur within the house. He went into a trance, his head went up to the ceiling, and he said, there's going to be an earthquake or grandma's going to die. There was no earthquake, and our grandmother at that point was very much still alive. There then came this light through the glass, through the hall of the door, very intense light, and this small being, it was about 3 foot in height, clad all in black with what I assumed was a large motorcycle helmet on its head. It wasn't a motor, it looked bigger than the body, came through the door and disappeared. And in the early hours of that morning, I then experienced what they call the abduction, and it was horrifying. People kind of like say, oh no, the only reason that you had a negative abduction is because you're a negative person. No, I'm not. I'm practical, I'm grounded, I'm very down to earth, I'm very open with a lot of theoretical content and ideas, absolutely 100% there. But the experience itself was very weird. I will say to you, though, Jimmy, that at the end of the experience, the encounter, there was a grey that was stood with his arms folded. It was in this one-piece suit wearing a tall pointed hat. It seemed to be quite smart the way it came round the uniform. But what this grey did was exactly the same as what my brother had done earlier that night, where the grey, when I asked a question to it at the end of the abduction, because I was angry, I wanted to hit him, but I couldn't move. And I thought, well, I need to ask it a question. How on earth am I able to get through solid matter? How is that possible? Because I thought that if he could tell me, then I'd have the answers. I would know the secrets of how they did it. And he looked at me, and then he started to slowly raise his head up to the underside of underneath of his craft, and he started to rasp this electronic voice that reminded me of the voice synthesizer we had for our ZX81 years back. But what's interesting is that what that grey was doing was mimicking what my brother had done earlier that night. We don't know why, but there seems to be some kind of disturbing connection with timelines, or it's hard to explain. But a lot more of that information, it has been published, it is out there, and I will say to you, Jim, I'm sorry, I'm embarrassed to say that, not only have I been researching the phenomena for many long years, like many other good folk out there, and trying to find the answers. That event changed everything for me, because I wanted to find out what they were and why they were here and where they came from. And I didn't want the fairy tale version. I wanted the facts. So this is what, in 1989, we lived in the village of Master Mortain then, it was quite isolated. Wonderfully enough, no one else had been witness to the event of the abduction itself. And that normally does happen because these entities are able to knock people out, I suppose, as they come in to integrate themselves through you and bring them into their filled frequency of awareness or reality. So that is what occurred. Strangely though, Jimmy, I recall every event as it happened, every fine detail as it occurred, whereas most people who are abductees, whatever you want to call them, don't. And I think it's because I'm very hard to regress. I'm very hard to hypnotize. It can't be done. I've got a very strong mind, very strong-willed mind. I mean, is that part of it? I don't know. Maybe I was meant to remember, but that was an experience that I will never forget. No, and that is what propelled me then into investigating UFO and alien phenomena, as it were. And interestingly enough, Jenny Rendles did get in touch with us back then. It's like, oh my God.
She gets on that scent. You got it. Philip, I understand that there's parts of this that you don't want to discuss. And that's fine, but certainly I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to squeeze everything out of you that I can. Okay, so, but that being said, the embarrassing part of it is that the view that you
there was
well, let me ask the question. Okay, which is this: back then it was embarrassing, right? And the way that the public would react, or publishers and so forth. Today, if you recalled and reported the same exact experience, would it be embarrassing today?
No, I don't think as much. I think for me, on a personal level, the invasive quality of that investigation was very hard for me to deal with on multiple levels. It's, people talk about what they've gone through and they've experienced, but there also comes a level of emotional attachment to it and fear. And that is something that I had to deal with for a very long time. And still to this day, it is fascinating. I still can't make sense of what occurred. I was left with physical marks. There had been 3 triangular marks behind my right ear. I had 3 marks on my right arm. I had continuous nosebleeds to the right nostril, and I found it difficult to walk for a while. Someone said to me, you want to go to the doctors. And I said, really? You're joking me? Well, anyway, I will tell you something that is very interesting. I think there was something that was placed in my right ear, and I can't prove this, but it could possibly have been connected to that 1989 event, because some years ago now I felt something. There's always something in there. It's like it was blocked, and I kept going back to the doctors for them to have a look, and they were looking in and having a look, and they're like, well, not quite sure. And I'm like, what do you mean? They didn't ever send me to an ear specialist, but on one occasion I felt the whatever it was pull right back. I could physically feel it move back, and I was so shocked that I phoned the doctor, and I thought, right, I'm going back. So I go into the doctors. You'll laugh at this, Jimmy, you will. Entertainment, you haven't heard anything yet. I went back I have a sense of humor about this as well. Went back to the doctors, and they said, is it your ear? I said, yes, my ear. Can you have a look? So the doctor gets the device out, has a look in, umming and ahhing. And I'm like, yeah, there must be something. I mean, so she says, hang on, I need to get someone else. So she put the object down. She went off to go and get another doctor. She came down and she was having a look. She said, it looks like it has the crystalline structure. It looks like it's still healing. And she said something. I couldn't quite remember what else she said. I was quite shocked. Like, you're joking me. How many times have I been to the doctor for my ear? And I have the medical records, you know. And then she puts the object down, and she went back to her work. And the other doctor in front of me looked at me, and no word of a lie. She didn't know me from Adam. She doesn't know. She said, have you been abducted by aliens? So I went back to my car, far worse than when I got into the doctors. Yeah.
Man,
those were her exact words. Have you been abducted by aliens? And I remember thinking, well, that is what I'm thinking, but how are you thinking that? Because you're a doctor.
wow.
You shouldn't be asking a patient that. And they did not even send me to an ear specialist. And what's interesting is, and I will tell you very quickly here, Jimmy, that interestingly enough, I'm not going to get involved with the arguments with regards to certain things that we had to have with an event that occurred. But when I had these things given to me, not anymore, thank God, there was another occasion where I woke up and I had all of these marks around my neck, and I'd lost an hour. So whether or not those guys had come in and thought, oh no, we're not going to have him being tainted by them, we're going to get that clean, I don't know.
I have many friends out there that went through this with me, and it was my left ear. 2 years. Okay, 2 years I went through this recently, and I went to multiple doctors, ear specialists, multiple doctors. So they couldn't figure out, and it was a bad situation, and 2 years, every conference, everything. I was doing TV shows, everything while this thing was going on, and it was gnarly. And I was so much medication, antibiotics, and this and that, and drops, and this, and finally, they did a bunch of photography, right? Went in and took a bunch of pictures and pulled something out. Now that's it. And I couldn't, I'll say this, that driving home that day for the first time in 2 years, I was normal. And I never want to go through that again. And I'm not going to describe or talk about it on the air. I'm just not going to do it. But it was nuts. Oh, I've got many I had people, I had a friend of mine, acupuncture. I had people in there with lasers at times. I had different friends of mine going in and doing, and for 2 years. 2 years. Yeah. It was nuts, and it was insane to go through. Now let's go back to 1989 for a second. So you guys this was at a remote. This wasn't like in downtown London. Right?
No. That's right. It's in a remote area.
How long was the entire event. Let's start with
Okay. Yeah.
when the light came through the door, right? The guy with the big helmet.
Yeah.
From there to the end, how much time are we talking?
Well, the event occurred when the guy came through. I say guy, the grey. People want to put it into a box. That was 7:15, around about 7:15 at night, and it seemed to conclude in the early hours of the morning. So I would say probably roughly around about 4 a.m. in the morning, because I remembered that when the experience had concluded, it was becoming daylight. So the whole event had occurred within that time period. One of the things, and I will say to your good folk here, is that one of the things that really was disturbing, and I always felt within myself that, being an investigator, such as I am, as you want to call me that, like all of us, in my own small way, talking about 3 of the entities were reptilian. And that is something that when the intrusive investigation was being performed, now at that point, after the coming out of this experience, within ufology, there was no mention of these things. And so I'm thinking, well, these entities, these beings were there. They were not pleasant. And I've had people telling me where they're from, their high command, all the rest of it. Please, I can only report what I saw and what I experienced. They were there. So for me, having to address this back then and that is where, Jimmy, the embarrassing part came from, because, my God, it would seem like this guy is nuts.
Mm-hmm.
But, I am very grounded with regards to this, and that is very disturbing. So people have told me, it's because now in later years when I have spoken about this, it's because the greys are linked with and I said, well, that's great, that's wonderful, I'm glad you've got that worked out, because I damn well haven't. But it is very strange. But the experience itself, Jimmy, was beyond that level of fear. I can't explain it to you. It was something that tore inside me. And I think that, looking at it now, you made a very good point, a brilliant point, when you said, would you want to go through the abduction or not? I think to some level, if I hadn't had that experience, Jimmy, I wouldn't be here where I am today in terms of investigation. I wouldn't have had the knowledge or understanding on a theoretical level of what I feel that perhaps part of this phenomenon may represent on a conscious level of integration, especially where the greys are concerned. And I think going back to that point, what's fascinating is that we look at ourselves as a human species, and we believe that we live, that we exist, and we die. Well, there is a lot more involved with us than that. There is a process that goes beyond this level of what we call reality, and I think and feel multiple levels of reality that are coexisting or can connect with ours temporarily, if I may use that, temporarily come in and go out. It is interesting going back to these UFOs or UAPs, a dozen of them that are kept in storage somewhere. All of us would, give your right arm to walk in there and have a look at them and touch them and have a look and see what the pilots look like. That's interesting. Because obviously there are a number of them. There are different species of them. Obviously, they're acknowledging that there are different ones. And again, going back to the experience of the abduction, there were those reptilians and there were some greys, and it's like, well, if they're talking about other entities, other species, then but my argument has been going back round in that circle again, and I love that. Where are they? Where are they hanging out? It's like we want them here, right? Not taking us through the astral way or disabling reality or however they do it, warping space and time. We want a full-blown conversation with them one-to-one, but they're not giving that. And do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a series we had here in England, a Jerry Anderson production called UFO.
Oh, man. I have the complete, it was 24 episodes, right? And I have probably watched, I have it on DVD, I have probably watched that season. I wish they would have continued it, right?
Yeah, it was very dark.
I probably, yeah. There were some. Yes, I've probably seen each episode 25 times.
Oh wow, dear Lord, that is oh my God, that is remarkable, Jimmy. But
You
I
know, they
must
found the cars. They found the two cars in
oh right.
somebody's backyard in England, and they've restored them.
Oh no, I
Uh,
didn't know that. I didn't.
yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
know that at all.
yeah. Anyway. So you brought that up because
Because I think it's interesting because we need to know now where these entities are coming from because we now understand through certain whistleblowers that there are separate species, there are different species. What are we looking at? You know, are there reptilians? We know there are greys, absolutely. You know, and are they connected? And also, interestingly, they mentioned here that some of them were not nice. Now, I'm not going to get involved in the arguments with the love and light and those that believe in the nasties. My research has always been temporarily locked with what I've experienced in terms of like the other side of that, in terms of the bad side of that. I'm afraid I have had to do that. I'm not dismissing the love and light ones, but it's interesting, isn't it? I think and feel now for all of us to try and work out what they look like. And you made me laugh, Jimmy, when you said they were nice. I like that. That made me laugh. It's like they're going to look in a bit of a bad way, aren't they? I mean, whatever they've got them on cryogenic freeze, whatever. But you can bet your bottom dollar they would have preserved those to the best of their ability. They would have used everything that they have at their disposal to make sure that that technology and biological matter, if it is biological matter, whatever matter that is, whatever construction they come in, it could be AI, it could be, whatever. That would be very interesting. I think all of us out there, not just your viewers, your fans, and all that, all those people, all of us want to walk in and see that. We want to have a part of that. And once again, I think this is going to open up a huge can of worms because we all say, yeah, there we are. So you've lied to us about this, and it's one big whopping lie. What else have you lied to us about? What haven't you told us? But going back again to that point, I do understand to certain points that we as a society have been programmed in a very simplistic, basic model of how things are. And now this is all coming out. The system's like, oops, a lot of people out there are going to be not understanding of this. They're not going to be accepting of this because the system said, no, there ain't anything out there. There's no such thing as UFOs, no such thing as aliens, no such thing as life after death, no such things of cryptozoology. And by the way, they're real. How are we going to explain this? And it's like, yeah, you got a problem now. So I think that this is why there's this game changer that's starting, and they're still not going to give much away. I don't think, not for a very long time. I don't feel that myself.
I don't think it's in their control anymore. But
no, agreed.
I'm going to tell you, I wanted to be Ed Straker for so many years. The car, the clothes.
Yeah.
You remember in his office, he had the bar with the whiskey and the tumblers, right? Ashtray. He was always smoking.
But I thought that was you. But Jimmy, I thought that's how you were anyway. That's how I saw you, right?
Yeah.
I always like the Equalizer, the version here. The Equalizer, Edward Woodward. I always liked the way he come across as very suave and smooth, and the leather gloves and like the Jag and all the rest of it. I love that. That's kind of like, oh, that's cool.
Have you seen, speaking of reptilians, have you seen the video of the lady on the plane? Have you seen that video this week? All right. No. When we're done, I know it's late or early in the morning for you. There's a video on social media right now of this lady. I think the video came out like 2-3 days ago. Comes running. I want off the plane. And she turns around, and I'm going to say she's 30, 29, 30, right? Mm-hmm. White. She's got a purse thing. I'm just trying to she looks like just average.
Yeah.
Okay, she's average. And she goes, that dude back there isn't real. Shape-shifting reptilian. And she gets off the plane. It's you need to watch that video.
Mm.
I don't.
I'll find it. I'm sure it'd be easy to find on the social media sites. I'll find it.
There was a part of me that said this has to be an act, except she's acting too good. So that part of it seemed it's all real right now. The question is, what is it? Allegedly, there's a couple of other videos of people that were there that saw what happened. And she was sitting next to this guy in a hoodie. And apparently he shapeshifted.
I've never seen a shapeshifter. I mean, whatever those were on board that thing, were they? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But I do agree with you. A lot of the content on certain sites we have to be very careful with.
Well, you see what Marty just posted? Her anxiety and fear was real.
Well, then I'm not doubting it. Jimmy, I think
it's a crazy video, man. And wait, somebody else just said he spoke to her telepathically. Yeah, there was something else apparently with some of the witnesses that saw what was going on. She was doing all the talking, and he was just looking straight ahead, and she's answering his questions. Right, they're having a conversation, but dude wasn't saying anything.
Wow.
Yeah. And
we live in a world, don't we, of high strangeness. I mean, and a lot of the people that I'm involved with, a lot of the researchers, one of them is Steve Aspin. He wrote a book called Out of Time, absolutely incredible through the intergenerational connection and also the telepathic links with regards to these beings, because he said, I'll just say here, it really made my skin crawl when he was being examined by one of these greys, and continuously, he's a very grounded man, brilliant man. He asked the grey why they were doing this, and the grey communicated in his head and said, "Oh," as though it was bored, because the grey was going to wipe his mind anyway they do it through the eyes. "Oh, it's because of your mother and your grandmother." So there's this. He was very chilled by that, by the communication from this grey that was like in his head, but spoke to him very clearly, like, "Oh, it's because of bored," more or less. And my argument is, my God, Jimmy, what are we dealing with, and what is their intentions? This is why we're so fascinated by the research and looking into the phenomena and trying to ascertain, and through personal experiences as well, which are just as important, that creates those patterns, those links that we're looking for to identify what it is. But this phenomena continuously eludes us, and the greys themselves especially are, I call most of the time grand deceivers, because you're never going to get much from them, whatever they come forward with. So it is very fascinating, very interesting, and I think it's just amazing, in terms of like all of our connection. And I think the most wonderful part to this is it's brought people together. You get people who've got it all worked out. They'll tell you how it is and what it is and all the rest of it. Well, it's okay. But I think for a lot of us, for that real link with that truth, that is something that really fascinates me in levels that can't be explained. And we try and find the language to describe that. But it's amazing. I think it's great. It's great. And by the way, I was going to say, my God, I couldn't believe, Jimmy Church was having me on his show. I was like, oh my God. It's like, you're the man. You're the man.
No, thank you for that. And you're very kind. But here, I want to go address what you just said, though. So many do want these answers, right? And to communicate. I'm not so sure that we could understand what it would be that they would, these answers that we want, because let's put things in perspective a little bit. Just humans, us, right? 200 years ago, 250 years ago, right? Let's go back to Boston, the Tea Party, the British American, the Revolution, right? And all that stuff that went on. Would that version of us from 250 years ago understand us telling them what the internet is?
No, yeah,
No. And it's so elementary to us today.
yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Nuclear, a microwave oven, right? And would we, our own versions of ourselves, would we understand what we would know 500 years from now?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, we wouldn't. So
No.
why is it that communication with ET is going to be something that we could understand?
Totally accepted. And I believe also that there are different areas that we can look into, interdimensional hypothesis, us from the future, ultra terrestrial beings, demons, the list goes on.
Sure.
I mean, I think and feel at the end of the day, what we are aware of is the fact that it is real, it is happening, it's been documented, and we're going through a stage now where some of this information is starting to leak from the high establishments through certain whistleblowers. And as I said, that is really exciting. It gives us hope with regards to us moving forward, because people now don't think we're crazy, right? They must think, hang on a minute, that person that's involved with UFO research or whatever, there may be something to it. It's like, yes, there is, because we know there is, but it's good for them as well, because it's changing their attitude, their mental processing. And sure, I agree. I think it's rather like a monkey giving a monkey a transistor radio. It's not going to understand what that is. And I don't mean to demean our species in that way, but our understanding is so far removed from theirs. It literally is like light years away.
Yeah. And I'm okay with that. And somebody just said they would burn us at the stake for being witches, right? Probably, probably. Philip, thank you so much. Give my best to your brother, okay? And everybody, the links for the twins are below. Go check it out, all right? And Philip, just the best. And I look forward to the next time that you are on Fade to Black with us.
Jimmy, you are awesome. Someone said they'll put the check in the post. Thank you very much. But Jimmy, you're awesome. You're a great guy. Thank you so much. And I wish you very well with your shows. I'm very honored to be on board and to be among your esteemed guests as well. You understand?
And I'll be in the UK in 4 weeks. I'll see you then.
Okay, Jimmy. Bye-bye. God bless. Bye-bye.
See you, Philip. Great show tonight. And thank you for that. Live from the UK. And that was perfect. Philip Kinsella. And also his links are below. We've got them over on our website. You can do all of that. And let's see. What have I got going on tomorrow night? Oh, later on this week, by the way, everybody, I got Robert Clotworthy on the show. That's on Thursday night. Tomorrow night, Michael Peter Langevin will be with us. We're going to be talking about the secret teachings of the Incas. All of that is tomorrow night. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Great show tonight. Thank you. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you to Dennis and Kevin. Webmasters Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll see everybody tomorrow night. Go back, Lee Tappy.